fear into me, he's throwing one into himself and all humanity as well. He doesn't know that he's connected to me, and his belief in his separateness is what allows him to strike out rather than to help others. And that's truly at the core of being spiritual. To shift your consciousness from a non-spiritual being, a five-sensory being, to a multi-sensory being, to a spiritual being. One of the qualities that I talk about in the Spiritual Dozen is that spiritual people live by ethics. Non-spiritual people, or five-sensory people, have a tendency to live by rules. So, in order to transcend that, in order to make that shift in your life, you can begin living one day, just one day. This is all done in days. It's not done in years. It's all done in moments. And you take a day and you emphasize ethics rather than rules. So what you want to do is inventory all of the rules that you follow so emphatically in your life. Rather than conducting your life in just this day on anyone else's rules, try having an ethics day for yourself. Today, Friday, ethics day. Base all of your behavior just in this day, including your eating and your dressing and your working and your home life and anything that you do on this day, on ethics rather than rules. Ask yourself, what is the moral, purposeful, loving thing to do? Not what are the rules and what are the laws, not what am I supposed to do, what was I told I had to do. So what you do here is you're shifting your consciousness away from outcome and onto purpose in your life. Instead of what am I supposed to be doing, it is what is the moral, ethical thing to do. I may be justified. It may, you hear people saying things like, I'm only doing my job. This is what I'm supposed to do. This is what I have to do. I'm sorry. I know it's abusive, and I know I shouldn't, that it's unfortunate, but I have to do it because these are the rules. Or I'm always finding myself having to do what I was told to do. I mean, I was just raised this way. This is the way you do things. What you want to do is keep in mind that some of the most despicable human behavior in the history of humanity was conducted in the name of I'm only following the laws. The laws used to say, they were written down, that black people had to sit in the back of the bus. The law said that a woman couldn't vote. In Nazi Germany, the law says that you put certain people into concentration camps and you burn them if necessary, and you're just doing your job. And this was the defense that you heard at Nuremberg over and over again. I was only doing my job. That's pretty extreme, what I've just described. But people who live by ethics make the difference in their life and know that they move away from these arcane, victimizing rules, and they run their life on ethics. And it was the people who ran their life on ethics and said, this is no longer proper, this is no longer right, I'm no longer going to continue enforcing these rules, even though the rules are on the books, just because they're rules. I'm going to become an ethical person. Those were the freedom fighters in Germany and in France and throughout all of Europe who understood that just because it says I have to do this, I know in my soul that this is wrong. And you change things. See, if you always do things the way you've always done things, then there's no such thing as progress. And if you're doing what everybody else tells you you have to do, then who are you? If you follow the herd, if you're just like everybody else, then what do you have to offer? You have to take and look at and understand that inside of each one of us is a set of ethics. And we know that regardless of what the rules say, this is not the proper way to conduct ourselves. And we begin to shift that. Shift to ethics. Shift to an understanding that how I treat other people is how I want to be treated. And just try that for a day. And you find that pretty soon, rules don't determine anything in your life any longer. It gets easier and easier and easier to disobey or send out of your life the rules that don't make any sense. This is not to say that some rules aren't important. Of course they are. We stop at a red light, not because it's a rule. We stop at a red light when we're driving because it's the moral thing to do. You don't want to put someone else's life and your own life and your passenger's life in jeopardy, and someone might be coming from the opposite direction. A lot of people need rules in order to understand that they have to stop, and that's a guideline. But if you sit there at that red light, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and it's broken, and the light doesn't change, and an hour goes by, and the thing is malfunctioning, and you're still sitting there because you can't go through a red light, and that's one of the rules, then you haven't learned how to go beyond the rules and live your life ethically. You look both ways, you get out, you say, there's nobody come by here in the last hour. Maybe I can go through this. And even if you're going to get a ticket for doing it, you know that it's sensible, all right? And after a while, then all of the customs about how you should dress and what you should eat and what fork you should pick up and where you should appear and how you should stand, all of those things don't play any role in your life. For the creative, spiritual person, they don't need a set of etiquette guides and a set of rules on how to conduct their life. They know within what is moral and proper. And if other people don't understand that, they are practicing what Abraham Maslow talked about in his self-actualization psychology, that the highest quality that a human being can reach is to be independent of the good opinion of others. You're not doing it to get attention. You're not conducting your life in order to get other people to like you or to fit in or to obey the rules. You're independent of that. You're running your life on ethics. Another way to shift the consciousness from being 5th century to multi-century, from being non-spiritual to spiritual, if you will, is to begin to befriend your intuition. Make a friend of these hunches that you have. Treat these inner proddings that crop up in your mind as guests that are welcome, instead of labeling them as nothing but random hunches. Just for a while, just begin to take notice of these thoughts that are there. Try stopping yourself during your next intuitive episode, whatever it is about, and make a mental note of what is taking place. Now, instead of ignoring it or pushing it out, ask that intuitive part of yourself, just have a conversation with it. Why am I being pushed by my mind in this direction? Let a dialogue begin to develop with that intuitive voice, and simply try to make a note of what you're going to learn by what happens in the next few days as a result of that intuition. That is, if you were to follow that intuition, what consequences would flow from that? And then by learning to have this internal dialogue, when you have a real strong intuitive hunch that you should be doing this, you should move in that direction, you shouldn't do that, whatever, begin to befriend it and begin to trust. Ultimately, you discover that what it is, it's loving presence, and it adds a valuable contribution. Here's an ancient story. It goes way back, the year 638 A.D. Two monks were arguing about the temple flag. One said that the flag moved. The other monk said that the wind moved. Master Eno overheard them and said, "It is neither the wind nor the flag, but your mind that moves." And the monks were speechless. It is your mind that records all of this. The physical world is a manifestation of your mind. The next time you have an intuitive notion that you are tempted to ignore, choose to go with this inner voice. Soon you'll learn to cultivate the habit of trusting this intuition. I'll tell you, I do in my life all the time. And ultimately, I pay a very, very heavy price for having ignored my intuition. There is that inner voice that is saying, hold on, don't go this, don't do that, don't go in that direction. And I go with it anyway. I remember one time in making an investment. The investment was in a whole area of these municipal bonds, and the stockbroker was insistent that I buy these bonds because they had very high yield, but they were going for something that I didn't believe in. They were building some kinds of energy plants that I didn't believe were proper, didn't fit within my own moral code, and I thought that they might be dangerous to the environment and so on. But I finally gave in because the yields were so high, and I invested $150,000 in these bonds, and 3 years later they defaulted. And it's the only time in all my investment time that I've ever gone against my intuition, and they were the only time in all the investments that I've ever made since I've begun doing that I had anything default or go sour on me. And rather than be angry at it and rather than be upset about it, I said, here's a great lesson for me. I think of my talking to God as prayer and my intuition as God talking to me. And that divine intelligence is there, and it is sparking some kind of a thought. And a thought, to me, is something that is very powerful, because out of our thoughts, we create our whole reality. And once you know this, you start getting real careful about what you think about. You know that those thoughts are really going to manifest themselves into the molecules of your physical life. And so this intuition is something that's very powerful. Should I do this or shouldn't I do that? And if you go with the purposeful, intuitive voice, then you'll